It begins in a high-security lab in China, partially funded by the United States government, a facility meant to protect humanity by studying its deadliest enemies. But one mistake changes the world forever. Day 1, the first signs go unnoticed. A researcher coughs in the lab, unaware that they've been exposed. The pathogen, engineered to spread quickly and evade immune defenses, begins its journey. By the time symptoms appear, the researcher has taken public transit, eaten at a busy restaurant, and unknowingly infected dozens. The lab issues an emergency containment order, but it's too late. The pathogen has already slipped beyond its walls. In the early hours, life seems normal for most people. Crowded markets buzz with activity, commuters pack into subways, and no one suspects the invisible danger spreading among them. But the first wave hits fast. Within hours, hospitals in nearby cities are admitting patients with unexplained fevers, coughing blood, and collapsing on the spot.
Doctors scramble to identify the cause, but the symptoms are baffling and treatments fail.
Day 7. The virus spreads like wildfire. Hospitals are overwhelmed, their hallways lined with patients gasping for air.
Doctors and nurses in full protective gear work tirelessly. They are soon infected too. The pathogen mutates faster than anyone anticipated, rendering initial treatments useless.
Entire cities are placed under lockdown, but it's not enough to contain the virus. On the streets, desperation sets in. Families barricade themselves indoors, hoarding whatever food and supplies they can find. Supermarkets are stripped bare within hours, leaving the shelves empty and the people outside fighting for scraps. Pharmacies are stormed by panicked crowds searching for masks, gloves and medicine, anything to protect themselves.
Governments broadcast emergency messages urging calm and promising vaccines, but trust is eroding fast.
Infected individuals roam the streets in a daze, coughing blood and spreading the disease. Those who survive this initial wave isolate themselves, terrified of their neighbors, friends, and even their own families.
Day 30. Society collapses.
Millions are dead and no corner of the globe is untouched.
Food supplies dwindle as farmers abandon their fields and transportation grinds to a halt.
Cities become war zones, with gangs controlling food distribution and violently defending their territories.
Those who can't defend themselves starve or succumb to the virus.
In the suburbs, people dig makeshift graves for their loved ones, unable to provide proper burials.
Survivors whisper stories of loved ones coughing themselves to death, of entire families wiped out in days.
The mental toll is immense.
Many cannot handle the loss and take their own lives, leaving haunting reminders of despair in abandoned homes.
Refugee camps spring up in remote areas, but they are overcrowded, filthy, and filled with disease.
Desperation grows as supplies run out.
People barter everything they have, clothing, heirlooms, even their dignity, for scraps of food.
Parents sacrifice themselves so their children can eat.
Some survivors band together to form small, isolated communities, but the fear of infection turns even friends into enemies.
Month 6, the virus has mutated again.
It now spreads faster and is even deadlier, making any semblance of recovery impossible.
Governments cease to function entirely, their leaders either infected or in hiding.
The world becomes unrecognizable, a patchwork of lawless zones, barren cities, and abandoned infrastructure.
The air carries a thick, metallic smell from the constant burning of bodies.
Piles of the dead line the streets, as there is no one left to bury them.
Survivors struggle to stay warm in the dead of winter, scavenging for blankets and burning furniture to keep the cold at bay.
In some areas, groups of survivors resort to unthinkable acts just to stay alive.
Trust has all but disappeared. No one knows who is infected or carrying the virus.
Paranoia reigns supreme, and the few who remain avoid all human contact, preferring solitude to the risk of death. Year 1, the human population is reduced to a fraction of what it once was.
The planet begins to reclaim the ruins. Plants grow through cracked streets, and wild animals roam free in once bustling cities.
But the survivors find little solace in this new world.
Hunger gnaws at their bellies, and the memories of what they've lost haunt them.
Parents cling to their children, trying to shield them from the horrors, but the scars are everywhere. Abandoned schools, empty playgrounds, and streets littered with the remnants of a vanished society.
Survivors wonder if humanity will ever recover.
Some try to rebuild, forming small communities in the wilderness.
Others simply wait for the inevitable, knowing that the virus is still out there, mutating and ready to strike again.
This is how it all ends: a single mistake, a world unprepared, and a pathogen too deadly to stop. Humanity wasn't destroyed by war, but by its own hubris, and the scars will remain for generations to come.